welcome to the tutorial. I'm going to show you how to do a simple, very basic velocity edit, or basically just my way of editing. Nothing too advanced or too hard today. I'm not the best, so I'm not going to say you should follow along with what I do. The way I edit is very messy, but it works for me. So when you figure out how to do this on your own, you can always do it in your own way, being inspired by other people. So my way of editing, most of it is self-taught, but there's always like a lot of tutorials out there that you can follow. I have the song here cut to where I want it, and I have the clip right here. You just import the clips. You can drag your clips right into this area right here, and then or you can hit file and go to import, and you can select your files over here. And once you have your files imported, you can just drag them down to the timeline right here. Since I have my song synced up or cut to where I want it to be, I'm gonna add Twixtor to this clip to make it more smooth. Or I Twixtor pre-compose it, so you can do Control-Shift-C, or you can always just right-click it, pre-compose, make sure this one is checked off, and press OK. And then you can add Twixtor to it. Twixtor, input frame rate. Make sure that is the same as the frame rate on your actual clip. So this one's 29.97, so keep it at 29.97. Change the image prep to contrast, motion sensitivity to 100, blend mode motion weighted, and then I'll check out smart blend, and then pre-compose it one more time. Make sure this is checked off. Okay, and then now you can hit turn on time remap. You can do Control-Alt-T, which shows you the keyframes on the timer map. What I like to do is I like to delete this last one. That way while I'm editing, it doesn't really move. Or if I have like 2 keyframes here, and if I cut it off and I just want to watch this little bit, it doesn't just keep moving all the way through. Like if you just start right here, 3B kind of drops, so I'll just drag the clip right there. And then just slide this to where you kind of want it to be. I'll start kind of this first one. I'll have it kind of pop out of this circle, so do right there, and then find the second one
shit, you chasing that Balenci
right here. I'll do this one. I can have a little effect right here. Go in, and then you want to highlight after you get your keyframes in. I'll highlight both of them, or you can just click that and then press F9 to ease them. You pop into the graph. For the graph, depends on what you really want. Typically, you would go for a graph like this, where it's fast, slow, and then fast at the end. Or if that doesn't really work for that, you can always go like one of these where it's fast and then slow. It's dependent on the situation. Just play around with the graph, see what looks good. And now I'm just gonna sync up the rest of the way. And after I sync up the rest of the way, I'll show transitions, shakes, all that fun stuff. Okay, so for the sake of tutorial purposes, I have just a couple clips synced up a little bit. So that right now, I have just a little bit synced up.
all this cloud shit, you chasing that Balenciaga Space Cadet. I don't even fuck with niggas, I just rap. All this cloud shit, you chasing that Balenciaga Space Cadet.
So the way I do, as you see, it's not really
all this cloud shit, you chasing that
not really much impact to that. It's just raw velocity, and you don't really get a feel for it. So what I like to do, or what a lot of people do, is they'll have a adjustment layer shakes. You can do one this way, where you have the adjustment layer here, the shakes. Shake real quick to it. So I have a preset for it, which I put in the description of the video, just in case you guys want to use it and mess around with it. It's a shake I use every time with the directional blur, exposure, and S shake. They have, so you can do the adjustment layer.
Cloud shit, you chasing that, but
Okay. So you can have this adjustment layer just for shakes, and then go to every clip. And then since I have this set as the first keyframe being 000, and then it goes into the settings, you go to the beginning of your clip, you go back one keyframe. You can go back one by hitting control and then an arrow key, or you can just manually drag this back one, and then you highlight all of this, control C, control V, and go to the next one, control V, and so on and so forth. Or the way I do it, which I don't think a lot of people do, is I'll just drop it straight onto the clip. Then now you have this. All the clips have a shake on them.
this cloud shit, you chasing that Balenciaga Space Cadet. I don't even fuck with niggas, I just rather all this.
So like I said, I left that little space right here
Chasing that, but
for that with that beat
cloud shit, you chasing that, but
right here. So there's that beat. So what I'll do sometimes in most of my edits is I'll do like a quick zoom. So I'll just split that, change this to about 125 or higher depending on how it looks, and then I'll move this shake from the original clip back here. That way it has its own little shake. Another thing you can do for this one, instead of leaving it as like a static zoom, static zoom, I'll do keyframe, go here, and go to the end of the clip, go about 200, or just go like however much you feel is necessary. Editing is all about try and error, so do whatever you feel like you like. Since this clip is really long, this one's really long, I'll do a scale transition, or I'll go keyframe, first one, I'll leave it 100, and I'll go to about the middle of the clip, and I'll go up. Since I'm zooming in, it's not really on Ryujin's face, I'll delete this, and then you can hit Y, and then your cursor will change to this, and you click this, and you can just move it up to about I don't know, right here, and then zoom in. See, now you're zooming in more towards her face, and I'll go back to the end of the clip, and then right click, reset, easy use that, and then I'll go for this frame, or for this graph, I'll do something like this right here. All this is just playing around with your graphs and seeing what looks best to you. It's just goes in and it goes out. Go. Since this one, zoom in, you can do sometimes I'll do something like I'll drop a tint on it, tint them out, keyframe that first one at 0, this one at 100, or maybe like 65, and then go back, or I just leave it right there, and then it can go back into color. Maybe I'll leave this one at 100 for this one. Keyframe, graph it, like something like that. So since this first clip is darker compared to the rest of them, when I do CC, probably have it be, a separate slot for this one, just because it's darker compared to these ones. Now, once you have all your clips and stuff synced up to the song, you can just hit Control A and then pre-compose all of it. Control Shift C, press OK. And then what I like to do is I'll have 2 adjustment layers. So Control Alt and Y will get you this adjustment layer. And then depends on what I want, I'll have black bars, so that would be Control Y, and then set the color to black, and it'll just be like it'll cover up your stuff. So for the black bar, you add JAWS, CC JAWS, change the height to 0, and then change the completion to whatever you want. Usually I'll just go like 85 or 90, leave it at 85 for now. And then this top adjustment layer, I'll have RSMB. And then I'll change the motion sensitivity to about 35. I'll leave the blur amount, or if I really feel like it, I'll change it to about 0.7. But for now, I'm just gonna leave it at 0.5. And the second one, I'll add sharpen. Set this to about 20 to 24, so I'll do 22. And I'll add curves to it. Now for this graph, I'll usually do like right where this intersection is, I'll put it up. And right where this bottom one is, I'll put it down. Makes it a little darker. Which, like I said, this clip is really dark, so I might not have this at all, or I can have it for an intro clip being really dark and transitioning it into a lighter clip like that. So you see the colors are a little darker, but then like the highlights are also a little brighter. Well, I have that. And then I'll add maybe a flicker depending on the song. Like this one's a little more, I'll probably do a flicker. I'll change the random frequency to 15 and the amplitude to about 1.1. And then once you have all that, I'll add looks to it. And then for the looks, you can play around with how, you know, how you really want it, or you can use the presets right here. The presets are alright. Like you can take some of these and then just play around with it. I probably chose a really bad clip to have as an example for the CC, so I'll probably go back and then go here, next clip. I'll use this one to create the CC, base it off of this clip. Like I said, these can be really good at times. These take whatever you have from these and then tweak them a little bit, but typically I like to just have a pop and subject, and then shadows and highlights, diffusion, lens vignette. Sometimes I'll do a 2-strip process depending on what I really want. Add curves, maybe a colorista to the subject. And for the pop, I'll just set it to about 25. Shadows and highlights. So kind of eyeball it. Maybe negative 0.5 would be okay. Negative 0.5. So about that would be okay. And for colorista, I'll change the midtones to be a little brighter. Shadows a little darker. Fusion. You can change the color to, again, whatever you really want to. Keep it at red to keep the color the same as the background, and keep the vibe of the song too. 5, I'll set the grade to about 5, or I'll leave it at 3. Usually I'll leave the diffusion as it is. If I really want to, I'll change like maybe the grade and size and glow. Everything else I just won't touch. And then for this one, the lens vignette, probably boost this one up to about 75. See how the edges now are a little darker compared to the center. And then for the curves, instead of doing the graph that we did for the adjustment layer, I'll turn this one down and maybe this one a little up just so it's a little brighter. Or I'll have this graph really dark. But that first clip is extremely dark, so I'll do one of these. But this is basically kind of the backbone of what I do. It makes a difference in how dark it is right here. So what I'll do, I'll just go in here to that first clip, and I'll cut this. It's, you know, we'll get rid of that. For the curves, and then I'll turn this down to about 45. You know, it's not as dark. Maybe I'll add an exposure to it just to brighten it up a little more. Like, give it a little boost. like that. Now it's a little brighter. Now it's done frame previewing. Come back on the same
All this cloud shit you chasing that Balenciaga Space Cadet. I don't even fuck with niggas, I just rap.
Another thing I like to do is, this seems a little, this is really smooth, so to make it a little more choppy, I'll add a posterized time to it, to the pre-comp instead of the adjustment layer. I'll set the frame rate to about like 20 or 18 or 15 or 20. This one I'll probably do like 20. Makes it a little more choppy, so it gives a false sense of, you know, a different frame rate. Instead of it being at like around 30 frames per second, it gives it a false 20 frames per second.
All this cloud shit you chasing that Balenciaga Space Cadet. I don't even fuck with niggas, I just rap.
Makes everything a little more fast. So maybe for this one, I'll do a one frame technique. So you add an adjustment layer and go back, like, just like chop this up to so it's exactly one frame. Now this is one frame. I'll add like 2 more, and then each one will have like a different effect. Like for example, this one I'll do like maybe a half tone color, which gives it the little circles. Add tritone to it, or I'll just leave it as it is, and then maybe do like a deep glow. Change this to about 25 or 0.4, and then probably add a directional blur to it. Change this value to about 35, and then this next one I'll do like a find edges, invert it, add a tritone or tritone to it. Change this middle one to about whatever color you want. Let's go with like red, and then I'll add a deep glow to it. Now you have, it's kind of like that. It's like a really flashy one, and this last one maybe I'll do like diffusion. So you just have to play around with the effects really. So now you have this.
I don't even fuck.
Now see the end results, and then you guys can just put this knowledge to use when editing. I hope you enjoyed the video. You know, probably have more edits to come in the future, maybe more tutorials depending on how this one goes. You know, if you guys want to learn anything new, just let me know in the comments and I'll do my best to explain it. Bye bye.